Good morning, everyone. How are we today? So I'll start with a question. How many of our parents ask us to eat at home? Please raise your hands. Why do you think that is the case? Okay, some of you would blame it on depleting pocket money, but most of you would say that it is because they want you to eat healthy. When did that concept come into play? When did people start thinking outside food is unhealthy and adulterated? I think what is happening currently is that yeah, what is happening currently is that uh, we consume a lot of digital media online where we find visually enticing food that influences our food choices. Now, is that technically or is that 100% something what you'd like to put in your body? Do you ever think like that? Or is it has it just become a trend? When I realized that this is turning out to be a problem, and I thought of something, a concept that uh, could solve it. So it was about offering something that was not just good to taste, good for your health, smells good, but also easily accessible, and good for your body. You wouldn't question it so much. But let's not get to that currently. Let's talk about when I was a child. And you'll understand why I'm going to that and how the whole story weaves together. So when I was in school, I was a basketball player. I loved playing basketball. I played for my school team. I played through Delhi State. I played the under 13s. I tried out for the under 16s. It was very exciting. I think it helped hone my hand to eye dexterity throughout. And while playing, at one point of time, I got injured gravely. I went ahead to my doctor and he suggested surgery. And I was told that I can't play basketball any longer, which was quite disheartening for me. Um, at that point of time, I just bought my first pair of really good basketball sneakers. And that was something that really disappointed me. Now, a few years later, of course, studies became the main part of school. And while I was doing commerce with maths, I went in to the school counselor and she suggested I get into design and hospitality. But I'm like, why, ma'am? I'm studying and pursuing commerce with maths. I would like to go on and do something in economics. Get and the laws of supply and demand really excited me at that point of time. Well, little did I know. I went on to continue doing an economics honors in DU, and post that, I landed a job at a big four consulting firm. It was exciting. It definitely was exciting. I was working with some big brands and doing consulting wherein I was helping processes improve for their companies. And 1 year uh, into this job, I mustered up the courage to turn around and tell my parents and quit the job on the pretext that I'd like to do an MBA. Now, when this happened, I knew that that's not what I am inclined towards. And, you know, how this goes. And I'm talking about 12, 13 years ago. So, while we were baking together, I realized this really excites me. And at that point of time, I felt I wanted to do a little more. I felt that I want to go into a commercial kitchen of a fine dine restaurant and see what it's like. Of course, at that point of time, my parents were just wondering what's happening in life. Uh, so I went, there was a friend's friend who was working at a friend's restaurant, And finally, I got landed an internship where they allowed this Indian girl to come in and work in a kitchen full of much older men. Uh, to say the least, it was a bit daunting in the beginning, but as I continued, it became very exciting. And I guess the skills that I honed during my basketball days, the hand-to-eye dexterity, all of this started coming into play because in the kitchen, your movements are such. Uh, it got very exciting, and I started enjoying it a lot. I didn't want to waste more time. At that point, I decided that I'm going to ask my parents and try to prepare everyone to tell them that I'd like to do culinary arts. And uh, I finally landed up doing culinary arts in New York. So I went to study in New York. And I think that was it. That was the time when I knew that things have changed now, Akriti. Now you've got to give it your all. So the school I went to was infamous for a lot of dropouts right in the beginning because it was tough and it was challenging. Uh, it, you know, uh, People were waking up at 5 a.m. For a morning class, and for breakfast you had to wake up at 2 a.m. I would smell like fish after my fish class, which was 3 weeks of it, where I had to do laundry of all my chef whites, and it was a different game altogether. While in culinary school, I got to stage at some of the best restaurants around the world, which were there in New York. Staging is basically a one-day trial that a chef does in a restaurant setup. While I was staging, I landed an internship at a Michelin three-star restaurant in New York, and it was the most exciting part of this whole culinary journey. While working over there, it was the science, the art of food that I learned through and through. So we learned everything and on how to respect an ingredient, as well as how important every second of every minute is after an order comes in. It was the smallest thing, but it became so big in the kitchen. Uh, at that point of time, I realized that I felt like I was on the basketball court again. And it kind of started making sense entirely. It was very exciting. Somewhere early around the time, I did feel a bit vulnerable though, and it was not always exciting. It got vulnerable as well. So I went into work, and my executive chef came up to me and said, "Look, Akriti, the staff meal cook is not here, and I'd like you to make a meal for 100 people for lunch and for dinner." And this was called the family meal, which was actually for all the staff members. This is when I didn't even know where the salt was in the kitchen. It was quite daunting to begin with. Uh, I got through lunch easily. It was not as hard. While getting through dinner, while getting, the last loaf of bread sliced, I chipped off a bit of the tip of my finger. It was not the best moment of my life. And at that point of time, they of course rushed me to the ER because, there was blood. So when I got bandaged up and stuff, I decided I want to go back in. And of course, there was a lot to prove back then. When I got back into the kitchen with my hand held up high above my heart and ready to go into service, which is what you do right before dinner service, my chef looked at me and he thought I'm crazy. But he understood very, very well that I'm here and this Indian girl is not joking. I got back home that day, and of course, this was my very tiny flat in Manhattan, which I shared with a few classmates, and they had a good laugh. So my usual day in school, in culinary school, as well as during work in Manhattan, would be about coming back into the flat and sharpening my knives. Um, my flatmates found that very funny, and the next day was the same thing again. Little did I know, and I now realize that it was so much practice in such little time because I was valuing every second of it. Now, coming back to India, when I did come back, I started working in a fine dine restaurant. My dream was always to open a very premium fine dine restaurant in India that would make a mark. I came back and I started working with a company that did so. And I got to work with world renowned chefs throughout. And it was very encouraging and exciting. But at the end of the day, I always found myself craving that one burger or that one rice bowl or that one burrito that I could get around the block in New York, you know. So at that point of time, I missed it. And I was wondering, why is this not happening in India? Why is it that there's nothing between the premium fine dine side of the restaurant and fast food? Why is there no in between? I started researching a little. I realized it's only Indian food in which these formats have been delved into. It's only the Indian cuisine where people are challenging different boundaries and going ahead and doing stuff. But I missed what I had in New York. And that is when the concept of Akus came up. In the West, there was a whole movement happening wherein there were small restaurant owners who were also chefs who were opening local chains, micro chains of restaurants around their cities where they were actually doing really great food right in front of the customer, and they were making sure it's clean, hygienic, it's fresh, and it's transparent. This is what we hoped to do at Akus. So it inspired me a lot, and I left my job, and then again, I was going into another concept. At that point in time, everyone was on the edge. They're like, Akriti, are you sure you want to do this? You've always been in fine dine restaurants. Why don't you open a premium restaurant? Or why don't you open a catering company? You've got a lot of experience in catering as well. Now, for me, I felt the person that I am resonates the most with what I was trying to do, which is this fast casual concept. It was at that point of time that I decided that, you know what, we've got to make the plunge. We've got to turn around and take the leap. And we founded Akus. 2017, early beginning, I started conceptualizing. My brother joined hands with me in 2017 mid. And by 2018 Jan, we had our first brick and mortar store. It took about 1 or 2 months. By month 3, we had a house full through and through every day. It was very exciting. I had to shut down the restaurant for half a day, and the chefs had to prep a lot of food so that we could feed the customers the next day, because we didn't have a big enough place to store more food. So this problem was something that was happening constantly. But we knew at that point of time that we can handle it. What I also realized was that as we are going ahead and looking at expansion, it's very important to keep quality at what it is, the way you have thought about it. Now, during this time, there were some testing periods, and there were times that I was challenged. But I think when you have faith in what you want to do and you have facts to back it up, it is something you can achieve, and you do get validation from around your peers, your customers, when you're going ahead and doing this. Now, when we started facing all these problems, where Akus was small enough, we realized that, you know what, we've got to expand, but we've got to do it the right way. Akus wanted to be the fast casual movement in India, in Delhi at that point of time. So we always kept our motto, and we stuck to it, which is real ingredients taste better. We made sure that any decision that we make that might adversely affect what we always intended to do right in the beginning would not be made. We would not go ahead and do something like that. It was always about good food. It is always about good food. The chef lies in the center of it. And the idea is to expand basis that. What we did in the beginning to make sure that we stick to this and we bring in, the global palate to the local plate in a sustainable manner, as well as make it accessible to more and more people, was that we, firstly, when we launched, we made sure that we have not just, meat patties in our burgers. It was a very vegetarian forward and a vegetable friendly menu. We made sure that the portion of a burger is not something that is huge or bite-sized. It typically fits the Indian appetite. The third thing that we did and we do and we decided on throughout was that 99% of our packaging would always be eco-friendly. Rather, 100% is what we always strive for. Now, it's been about 6.5 years. We're about 6 outlets strong, 5 to 6 outlets strong. We're going slow and steady, and we are on a 70-kilometer-per-hour train ride. The reason I say 70 kilometers a train ride is because we are going slow and steady, and we wouldn't want to be at 100 kmph where we can turn around and go the other way. Why I say a train ride is because it comes with a lot of bogies. Your bogies are your customers. Your bogies are your purveyors, your vendors, your colleagues, your employees, your friends and your family. Your friends and family play a big role in when you come into the hospitality industry. That is because it is very familiar to them. Food in general is familiar to people. So they sort of become your colleagues while you're doing this in a more isolated world when you start off a concept. At this point of time, whatever we are doing currently is on basis our tagline, which is real ingredients taste better. And I've got to tell you how this whole story weaves together. And of course, that comes from right from playing basketball to doing an economics honors to going ahead and working at a consulting firm and then training to be a chef. So a chef, I couldn't do this if I wasn't a chef. I couldn't do this if I hadn't worked at a Big Four firm. So both of them kind of came in together. When as right now as an entrepreneur and a chef, the toughest part is to maintain that balance, and I think that's what one has to work on. And one more important thing is that, the path to success, and many say it, and it is the truth, is never a straight line. It's always a curvy path, and you must cherish and embrace every part of it. Thank you very much.